The story begins with Martin, who works at an airport as a baggage handler. There he is given a lost and found box. Inside, there is a phone that suddenly rings. A man on the line says he is in Mumbai and begs Martin to return the phone and a photo stored in it. Before Martin can react, he gets a call on his own phone from his son's school. He has to leave right away. During the call, the found phone slips away and disappears down the luggage conveyor belt. Martin rushes to an electric tower, where his son Jake has climbed dangerously high. He manages to calm Jake and bring him down safely. One of the workers nearby tells Martin this must be reported to child services. Later, Martin is driving with Jake when suddenly, Jake jumps out and runs toward a bus, writing down the number 318 from the back of it. Martin notices it and realizes Jake keeps focusing on this number. Martin goes into a store with Jake, and all of a sudden, Jake grabs a lotto ticket belonging to some guy, runs to the car, and locks himself in. The man gets angry and hits Martin. Jake, unfazed, writes down the numbers from the ticket and hands it to his father. Meanwhile, in another part of the city, a man named Miles uses the same phone Martin found. He shows a girl strange videos on it, then secretly slips it into a stranger's bag. At night, Martin tells Jake that the doctor said he will grow taller than his dad. Suddenly, phones all over the apartment start ringing. The caller ID matches the number from the lotto ticket. Far away in Baghdad, a young boy watches TV. His mother tells him their stove is broken and they can't bake bread to sell. The next day, a social worker named Clea visits Martin. She says Jake's life lacks stability, too many schools, too many changes. She wants Jake to stay at a center for 2 weeks for evaluation. Jake appears behind her, and when she tries to touch him, Martin quickly stops her. Jake doesn't like to be touched. Martin notices the lotto numbers in the newspaper. They are the winning ones. In another place, the man from the airport finally picks up his phone. He wants to return home. At the same time, another man flies to Tokyo. He tells his wife he'll try to make it back for their daughter's birthday. She tells him not to bother and begins crying. Martin speaks to Clea about Jake's obsession with numbers. He shares how Jake keeps mentioning 318. Clea explains that some children do fixate on numbers. She reminds him of the evaluation. Back in Baghdad, the boy wants to fix their stove. A friend offers to help him steal one from a restaurant used by terrorists. In Tokyo, a girl tricks a man in a hotel room and steals from him after he enters the shower. She leaves with the same phone. Martin drops Jake at the evaluation center. Before walking away, he hugs Jake and tells him he loves him. Then he visits his wife's grave. She died in the 9/11 attacks. Martin feels overwhelmed and believes he is failing his son. Near the grave, he sees a fireman's badge with the number 318. The girl in Tokyo still carries the phone. Martin continues digging into the meaning behind everything and finds a lead to the Teller Institute. A man named Arthur Teller greets him. He speaks of deep connections, how Jake sees all time at once. He believes Jake is showing a path, and it is Martin's job to follow it. Meanwhile, Jake spells out a phone number with popcorn. Clea recognizes it. It is her mother's number. Then, that number calls her phone, but nobody speaks. The man from earlier books a flight to New York. Martin works through the numbers and discovers an address that leads him to Grand Central Station. Clea shows up. The date is March 18th, 318. They head there together. Martin keeps dialing a number. He hears a ringtone and finds the man who hit him earlier answering a payphone. Martin confronts him. Security pulls them apart. In Baghdad, the boys attempt to steal a stove. They find a bag of weapons and the same phone. A terrorist catches them. One boy confesses. The terrorist asks him what he is willing to do. Back in New York, Martin listens to a message from a fireman who found his wife's body. The fireman played those lotto numbers for years. He won because of her and wants to share the money. On TV, a report shows a school bus accident. The number 318 is on the bus. The man from the lotto ticket saved the kids because Martin delayed him earlier that day. Martin rushes to the center. Jake is gone. He escaped. The Tokyo man contacts his phone provider. His daughter died on March 18th. Photos of her suddenly appear on a giant screen above a shop. In Baghdad, the boy hears the phone ringing. The girl from the phone company tells him there is a bomb. She pleads with him to remove the battery. He tells her he just needs an oven. She promises to send one. He removes the battery just in time. Martin and Clea find Jake at the tower again. It is raining. Martin climbs up despite being afraid. He tells Jake he understands now. The number saved children. Jake hugs him and dials a number. Martin calls back. A man named Artie answers. Martin tells him that they are meant to connect. Clea tries to explain that it is serious that Jake escaped from a secure facility. She tells Martin to return to work and let her handle things. Martin refuses. She warns him that if he does not cooperate, she will call the police. Martin asks her to wait. Martin walks over to Jake and tells him it is time to go back. Jake writes a phone number on the hand of Martin. Martin returns to the airport and resumes his job. He places a dog on a cart, but it runs off. In another part of the terminal, a flight attendant bumps into a boy carrying his father's ashes, and the container spills on the floor. At the center, Jake keeps repeating the same phone number. Clea tries to distract him with popcorn. Jake makes a smiley face, but soon returns to the numbers. Clea offers finger painting. Jake covers his hand in red paint and swirls it. When Clea turns away for a moment, Jake uses the paint to write the number again and disappears. She searches the building and finds a locked door. She enters the code 5296 and gets through. At the airport, two girls notice the same flight attendant. She talks to the man with the ashes, who wants to go to Yankee Stadium. She agrees to take him. Martin visits a pawn shop and tells the owner that his son sent him. Suddenly, a robber bursts in. Martin and the owner manage to stop him. The robber escapes, but Martin protects the store. Later, the robber meets a mobster and gives him stolen money. The mobster is not pleased. The robber offers a valuable baseball as payment. The mobster accepts but throws it away, demanding full payment soon. Martin quietly follows the pawn shop owner to a hospital. The man grows nervous, thinking Martin is after him. On a bus, the flight attendant and the man with the ashes talk. He admits he had no real plan and wants to honor his father properly. Martin meets Professor Teller again, who explains that Jake senses when something is not right. He tells Martin to keep following the path. Clea calls with news Jake is missing again. Martin looks outside and spots Jake boarding a bus. He quickly follows. In Moscow, a quiet boy performs a magic trick at school. Only one girl claps. She tells him people fear his father. Martin and Jake return to the pawn shop. Martin wonders if stopping the robbery was the reason Jake brought him there. He checks the phone number on the window and calls it. A ringtone is heard in an upstairs apartment. They go upstairs and knock. No one answers. Jake opens the door. Inside, they find mail addressed to Rebecca and a baseball bat with 5296 carved on it. A man enters, and Martin pretends to be connected to someone named Arnie. A fight starts. Martin grabs the bat and escapes with Jake, some money, and a bottle of pills. They take a taxi to the hospital, following the label on the bottle. There, they meet Arnie. Jake looks outside and spots someone walking on a bridge. At Yankee Stadium, the robber returns to ask for the baseball. He says it changed everything. Outside, he meets the mobster, who receives a call from his son in Moscow. The boy asks if his father hurts people. The man lies to comfort his son. The child believes him and wants others to believe too. The mobster decides to forgive the robber. On the bridge, Martin finds Arnie and tells him that Rebecca is safe. Arnie explains he wanted insurance money for her. Martin says his time has not come yet. Arnie steps forward to jump, but Martin pulls him back. Just then, the lost dog reappears, followed by the flight attendant. She turns out to be Arnie's daughter. Everything starts to connect. Rebecca and Arnie reunite. The Indian man honors his father. The boy in Moscow smiles as his father returns. The robber finds forgiveness. That night, Jake lies in bed. Martin tells him that he once believed he had to guide Jake. Now, he understands. Jake is the one guiding him. He is the map. Martin gets a silent call and feels it could be from Jake. He rushes to the facility where Clea opens the door and says the children are sleeping. Martin insists Jake is sending a message. She warns about state involvement, but he pleads for a moment. Inside, Jake is missing. Martin finds him in the hallway, writing 3287 again and again. Before Jake turns the corner, he looks back at his father. Martin understands. It means something. Martin visits Teller and shares the number. Teller says Jake writes numbers when something feels wrong. These are signs of pain. Martin starts to fear losing Jake. In Africa, a woman enters 3287 during a test. Outside, two boys wedge a window open with a bottle cap. At a dance event, a girl in a red dress walks past security and joins the crowd, waiting for someone she hoped to meet. In the city, Martin sees a woman hit by a car. When he tries to help, a man snatches her book and runs. Martin chases after him. In Africa, a woman steps outside with bruises. Her partner becomes aggressive, then walks away after threatening her friend. Martin catches the man and finds him talking strangely. He calls himself the Invisible Knight. Inside the stolen book are the numbers 3287. The man believes the numbers are a warning. Martin tells him Jake writes the same numbers. The man says Jake wants the pain to stop, then disappears. Jake plays with a red toy car. Clea takes it to get his attention. Jake quietly takes it back and walks away. Clea follows. In Africa, the two boys dream of joining the dance competition. Their sister tries to stop them, but they don't listen. Martin keeps talking to the strange man, who says his job is to guide others. Martin shares that Jake needs help. The man places a flower on a bench. A woman picks it up and walks into a building with a dragon symbol. Martin watches and starts connecting things. The girl in the red dress tells two dancers she was stood up after traveling far to meet someone. They go on stage, leaving their phone with her. Inside the Dragon building, two women discuss a case. One wants to accept a deal, but the other advises her to wait. Martin overhears and pretends to be a lawyer. Someone recognizes him as a former reporter and tells him to reach out to Roger King. Martin learns King is dead, but mentions the Invisible Prince. The man lets him in. Inside, Martin meets someone who explains that his brother, a gifted numbers expert, worked for Morton Starling. Their father scammed many people. The brother disappeared. Martin believes this brother is the Invisible Prince. Clea notices Jake often moves toward one room. Then her phone rings. It is her mother's number. She goes to a hospital and finds an unconscious woman. The nurse says this woman called her. Clea doesn't recognize her but feels disturbed. In Africa, the boys sneak into a computer room and register for the dance event. They call themselves Silhouetto. Dr. Teller visits the center, pretending to refer a patient. He asks for a tour and watches closely. Martin finds a locked safe in a box and opens it with 3687. Inside are important documents. He rushes off with little time. In Africa, the abused girl cries. A woman nearby hears and starts banging a pot. Jake, far away, begins to scream. More women join the protest. At the same time, the boys perform their dance live through the computer. The crowd responds with loud cheers. Teller watches and hears Jake making race car sounds. Martin arrives and hands over the documents. The man is surprised. At the dance event, the girl in the red dress laughs as the phone reveals it was recording all along. She speaks to the Beastmaster, who feels defeated by a child's success. Martin meets the strange man again, who tells him the dragon is gone. He calls Martin the Invisible Knight and says the pain has ended. He invites Martin to live freely with his family. Clea finds Jake's red toy car near room 6. In Africa, a young boy hugs his mother. A news report confirms victory against Morton Starling. The abused girl takes the test. Clea gives the red car back to Jake and tells Martin she wants to understand better. Martin sits beside Jake and starts to tell him the story of the Invisible Knight. Martin receives a letter from the Department of Health and leaves his house. Outside a church, a man is sitting with a lottery ticket in his hand. A nearby newspaper headline says the winning ticket is still unclaimed. At the facility, Martin meets Clea and tells her the officials have stopped trying to confirm that Jake's mother died in the World Trade Center. He regrets not acting sooner. He wants to take Jake to her grave, although he feels unsure. Clea encourages him. At the cemetery, Martin talks about Sarah. Jake suddenly runs off and reaches her grave, where a man named Bobby is already standing. He says he knew Sarah. Jake then runs to chase a kite. Martin follows and explains to Jake who Bobby is. Jake drops a book with 9.5 written inside, then lets the kite fly away. Martin promises they will get a new one. In Baghdad, a teenager dreams of becoming a comedian and hopes to perform for American soldiers. Inside the church, the man with the lottery ticket meets a priest. He says he cannot find peace and feels the money is a burden. Jake nearly crosses a street without looking, but Martin stops him just in time. They continue walking and reach apartment number 65. A group of kids knocks into the door, flipping the number 6 into a 9. Bobby answers and realizes Martin has been following him. In the church, the lottery winner shares his guilt over someone's death. The priest listens and talks about his father's dream of expanding the church, but the man's guilt does not fade. In Iraq, a female soldier hides with a wounded man after an attack. At Bobby's apartment, Jake finds a photo of a girl named Sarah. Bobby explains that Sarah helped him pass his exams. He mentions that she did not wear her wedding ring and hints at problems in her marriage. Martin becomes upset and briefly lashes out, but then steps back. Bobby tells him that during the attacks, people were told to stay inside. He froze and could not help her. He carried her down many floors but left her behind, thinking she had stopped breathing. He feels ashamed and says he used the numbers from that day to choose the winning lottery numbers, but the money brought no peace. Bobby's wife finds Jake locked in a room. Martin breaks the door, but Jake has already climbed out the window to chase his kite. The kite gets stuck on a satellite dish belonging to King Rhodey, cutting off the signal. Something falls on a keyboard and sends a changed message, 950 volts instead of 95. Jake climbs higher to reach the kite. Bobby climbs after him and saves him just before he falls. Jake reacts strongly to being touched. Martin tells Bobby that by saving Jake, he has paid back what he owed to Sarah. In Baghdad, the teenagers use 950 volts in their comedy performance. The lights shine into the sky and help soldiers find the wounded soldier nearby. Back in the church, the priest and the lottery winner are trapped in a collapsed stairwell. A man arrives and rescues them. He brings a phone call from Iraq. The caller is Lori, the soldier. She thanks the priest for the words that gave her hope. The priest decides to travel to see her. The teens are told that Lori was hurt, but they continue with their performance. The lottery winner decides to stay behind and help repair the church. The priest leaves to visit Lori. Bobby finds peace with his family. At home, Martin looks through Sarah's belongings and finds her journal. The last entry leads him to a jeweler. There, he finds her wedding ring. It was never missing. She had sent it to be engraved. Inside the ring are the words, 1 + 1 = 3. A girl in Saudi Arabia is sitting with her father and another man, who are discussing her future. The moment they leave the room, she takes off her robe and sends a message using her father's phone. She refuses the marriage that has been arranged for her. In New York, a tourist asks a stranger for help. The man steals his wallet but changes his mind after seeing a photo of a child. He quietly returns it. A young doctor on the subway notices a girl but cannot bring himself to speak. He watches her leave from a distance. Nearby, a girl lights a candle in a church and quietly reflects. Martin shares lunch with Jake. Their bond looks real. Clea observes them with hope, knowing the custody hearing has started. During the meal, Martin brings up Sarah. Jake becomes upset and knocks things over. Later, Martin visits Teller and says he wants to just be Jake's father. Teller reminds him the numbers still matter. He believes the path is not finished. In Saudi Arabia, the girl picks up her friend. They disguise themselves as boys and try to escape. On the road, they stop to help a woman in labor. At the center, Jake quietly arranges sugar packets into a pattern. Teller studies it and sees the number 22. Martin feels lost, unable to understand what Jake is showing him. At the hospital, the doctor tells a colleague about the girl on the train. The co-worker warns him not to wait too long or miss his chance. The Saudi girls drive through the desert. The woman in labor grows weaker. They run out of gas, and she borrows a phone to call her husband. Martin loses his laptop to the same thief from before. He follows him onto a bus. The man escapes, but Martin stays on. A woman beside him reveals she is carrying a gun. Clea becomes worried. Martin is missing, and Jake has gone silent. The evaluation might not go well. On the bus, the armed woman says a man on board killed her father and brother. She wants revenge. The thief gives Martin's laptop to his daughter, wrapped like a gift. Her stepfather gives her a new car. She accepts both, torn between her real father and her current life. At the hospital, a young boy with leukemia waits for a donor. The doctor checks the list, desperate to find a match. Teller speaks to a nurse who is actually his daughter. She doesn't believe him and tells him to get help. Martin speaks calmly to the woman with the gun. He shares his story, including the phone call he missed from his wife. She tells him she followed him and believes he has something to lose. The woman's husband, still on a call, steps into the street. Martin shouts, saving him. In that moment, Martin sees a tattoo on the man's neck with symbols and the number 22. Fireworks light up the sky. The woman runs after her husband and is hit by a car. In Saudi Arabia, the girls help the woman deliver her baby. The girl's father arrives, angry. His daughter stands firm. When she repeats his own words, he listens and softens. Martin goes to the hospital chapel and reads verse 22. The message speaks about protecting children. It touches something deep in him. In Montreal, the doctor misses the subway girl again. Later, he finds her in the rain with a broken heel. He shares his umbrella and a coffee. They finally connect. Martin meets the man from the bus. The man shares that the children were not killed, but taken safely to Canada. He still carries the memory. At the hospital, Martin sees a strange symbol on a screen. It matches one of Jake's drawings. A child's name appears. Martin believes this is the brother of the girl from the bus. He pleads with Teller's daughter to believe in the connection. Clea warns that the committee might move Jake unless something changes. Martin searches through Sarah's belongings and finds a tape she recorded for Jake. The boy receives the bone marrow. His sister stays beside him. In Saudi Arabia, the arranged marriage falls apart. The girl's father lets her go. She says she wants to go to New York, and he agrees. Clea walks by Jake's room. She hears Sarah singing from the tape. Jake turns to Martin and smiles. A Chinese girl receives a phone call and begins to cry. A man walks out of his office. Clea stands by a train platform, her face full of worry. In a quiet park, Martin pushes Jake on a swing. Everything feels peaceful, but it isn't real. Martin wakes up from the dream, shaken. He visits Jake's room, tells him about the dream, whispers his love, and leaves. Clea meets with Sherry. Only a week remains before Jake's final evaluation. Sherry warns that Jake may need to be institutionalized. Just then, Clea receives a call. Her mother has been admitted to a psychiatric hospital. Martin visits Teller and gives him a new sequence of numbers. Teller instantly recognizes them. He explains that years ago, he received the same numbers. They form a map that connects lives. Doctors say Teller suffered an aneurysm, but he believes he is uncovering something important. He wants to meet Jake. Martin refuses, not wanting more trouble. At the airport, the Chinese girl meets the man from the office. His name is Will Davies. Martin works his airport shift, delivering a lost bag. The house he visits is filled with police. A little boy is missing. Clea arrives at the hospital to see her mother, whom she hasn't seen in years. Her mother was caught shoplifting. A bed is ready for her if she agrees to stay. Clea confesses she once felt relieved when she thought her mother was gone. Her mother runs out, claiming Clea is not her daughter. Teller sneaks into the facility, lying about a console. He finds Jake painting. Jake is writing the numbers 9, 7, and 5. Teller believes Jake has been waiting for him. Clea discovers that her mother stole cough medicine. She remembers the missing boy has a cold and connects the pieces. Martin is with her when the news breaks. They suspect her mother took the child. Will and the Chinese girl sit at the airport. Will talks about a building he reported unsafe, which is now being torn down. He questions his purpose. She gives a blunt answer from her parents' view. They part ways. Will gives her his business card. Teller asks Jake about a patient named Amelia. Jake paints another number, 6. Now the sequence is 9756. Clea calls the police about her missing mother. Martin thinks they must find her themselves. Will wakes up on the ground. The plane crashed. He is still in his seat. In his pocket is a ticket, Flight 975. The Chinese girl reaches home. Her partner Serena is inside with a spiritual healer. Martin and Clea study a map. A nearby building is where Clea's mother used to wait for her. She remembers a star her mother once drew and suddenly finds it engraved on the ground. Teller searches for Amelia. The last number, 6, leads him to room 6. Sherry stops him. He believes she is hiding something. She tries to dismiss him, but he accuses her of helping cover up Amelia's existence. Back at the apartment, the healer blames Serena's partner for their struggle to have children. He says she only wants her career, not a baby. Clea is sure her mother is nearby. The memories guide her closer. Will returns to his office and sees the news of the crash. His boss walks in. Will explains what happened, but knows they wouldn't believe it. He decides the building must be saved, not torn down. Martin and Clea rush to the building, believing her mother and the boy are inside. The workers ignore them. Then Will arrives and causes a scene, forcing them to stop demolition. At the apartment, the Chinese girl tells Serena she wants children, but her career was always in the way. Just then, the plane crash appears on the news. She was supposed to be on that flight. Martin and Clea enter the building, racing up the stairs. They find Clea's mother, confused and holding a child. Clea speaks gently, reminding her who she is. Her mother remembers, but the boy is missing. He wandered off, and she thought he would return. Martin runs toward the park. Outside, Will is badly hurt by the workers. Clea and her mother exit just in time. She thanks Will before a worker checks his pulse. He's gone. His ticket falls. Clea sees the flight number, 965. Martin reaches the park. A swing moves on its own. Then he hears a cough. He walks into the trees and finds the boy, safe but cold. Martin hugs him, but in his heart, it feels like hugging Jake. Later, the Chinese girl tells Serena they should try for a child. Family means more now. Serena shows her a photo of a sperm donor she likes. It's Will. Clea's mother agrees to stay at the hospital. Clea tells Martin that he was right. The numbers had meaning. Martin shares his dream, Jake jumping from the swing and hugging him. Clea tells him he's a good father. Inside Jake's room, he clutches a book. He has added a number, 6. Something is changing. Suddenly, noise erupts. Teller is slumped in his car. Nobody knows if he is alive. Martin finds Dr. Hopkins in an office that doesn't belong to her, watching security footage of Teller's last moments. The video plays until Teller reaches room 6, then it glitches into static. It resumes again, showing Teller setting something in front of Jake. Martin and Clea find Jake to recover whatever Teller left. Jake's tool this time is a deck of cards. He places down pairs, 2s, aces, and 4s, then stops when Martin shows him the funeral program. Jake quietly places down a 5 of clubs and Teller's visitor badge with a key labeled 1188. Then he adds more cards, including the dead man's hand of aces and 8s. In Paris, a young woman named Natalie uploads a video blog. Her boyfriend left her before their planned trip, but she traveled alone anyway. At a hostel, she finds a flash drive and plays a video on it. The video is a heartfelt message from a man named Paolo to a woman named Celeste. He missed the chance to confess his feelings and now wants to meet her in New York on her birthday, March 28th, at Cafe Kismet. Since Celeste doesn't have the video, Natalie takes it upon herself to find her using social media. Martin goes to Teller's house and runs into his daughter Maggie. He apologizes and explains about the key. Maggie shares how her father changed after a medical event years ago and became obsessed with numbers. She believes the key may open a secret place where Teller stored his research. At the center, Jake's Aunt Abigail shows up without warning. She isn't on the approved list, but insists on waiting. Clea grows suspicious, especially after Abigail mentions legal action for custody. Martin tries the key at a rundown building. A voice behind a door demands $1,000 to get in. The place turns out to be a gambling debt. Martin returns later with cash and enters. He sits at a poker table and plays with the dead man's hand. The dealer mentions that Teller always bet based on his numbers. Martin notices a dollar bill marked Logan 3 Stacy and follows the dealer, who turns out to have a connection to a mathematician named Logan. Clea brings Jake a tablet sent by Abigail. Instead of using the learning app, Jake plays a solitaire game that again shows the dead man's hand. He switches to an article about the number 1188 by Professor Logan Coatweiler. Logan had been using Teller's sequence to win at cards. He fell in love with the dealer Stacy, but disappeared to protect her from suspicion. When Martin finds Logan unconscious in his office, he helps him by administering insulin. Logan wakes up and agrees to tell Martin about the key, if he helps win back the money to pay off Stacy's debt. Together, they join a high-stakes poker game. Logan signals when Martin should fold, but Martin stays in. The final card gives Martin a winning hand. They use the prize money to repay Stacy. She's upset, but touched when Logan shows her a dollar bill from earlier, torn in half. He keeps one half and gives her the other. inviting her to breakfast sometime. Back in Australia, Devon tries to ride a horse named Zeus to inherit land left by his father. After many failed attempts, Devon connects with the animal emotionally and finally gains its trust. He decides not to stay on the land and gives it to a ranch hand named Zeke. Natalie continues blogging, and her message spreads across the internet. People around the world wear red hats or scarves on March 28th to support her mission. At Cafe Kismet, she shows up, surprised by the turnout. Paolo arrives too. He tells her he came not for Celeste, but for her. Their story touches everyone around them. Martin finally finds the door marked 1188. Inside, he discovers Teller's hidden study. Clea watches the video footage again and notices the same wheelchair-bound girl that Teller had seen. Jake continues expanding the number sequence, now including 1188. A man is listening to opera on a bus. When he stands up, a vacuum tube falls from his ham radio. Martin picks it up and gives it back. They talk briefly, and the man thanks him. Jake sits quietly at the center, twisting red yarn into a cat's cradle. The shape he finishes on looks like a diamond with 8 intersecting lines. Clea sees it on Abigail's business card and realizes it's a sign. The group heads to the New York Science and Aerospace Museum. Jake bolts from the group once they arrive. Martin runs after him and collides with a woman, spilling her purse. Jake quietly picks up her phone and puts it in Martin's pocket before slipping into the museum. Inside, Jake becomes mesmerized by a projection wall showing live feeds from Paris, Tokyo, and Berlin. When Paris appears, he locks eyes with a woman in a red coat and reaches toward the screen. She does the same from Paris. This is the first time Jake responds to someone emotionally. A woman near the display is talking to someone in Paris. Martin asks her to find the woman in red. A boy on the other end retrieves her. Jake calms down once she reappears. The woman in red sees someone in the New York crowd and reacts with shock. The woman with the retrieved phone recognizes her and breaks down. She believes it's her mother, but her mother died 2 decades ago. The woman in red confirms her name is Simran, which is rare, and she has a birthmark just like the woman once did. This moment changes everything for her. Outside the museum, Martin chases clues and spots a cab with the same ham radio driver from earlier. Jake steps in front of it. A rude man jumps in and gives directions. Martin thinks the number from Simran's phone leads to a nearby hotel. There, Jake finds a maid who looks exactly like the woman in red. He builds the same cat's cradle shape in front of her. Her name is Nunvu. She doesn't believe she has a twin, though many details match. Birthplace, date, even her mother's name. Meanwhile, an astronaut named Gio prepares for a spacewalk. His wife, Hippolyta, watches nervously from Earth. She designed the communication system they use. They talk briefly before she loses contact. She sends him her love and looks at the moon. Back at the center, Clea connects more dots. The exhibit is funded by Astorcorp, the company linked to Abigail. Jake and Martin are still missing. Clea stalls to protect them. Martin calls Veronique, the woman in red, and asks about her childhood. Her information matches Nunvu exactly, even down to being allergic to strawberries. Nunvu overhears and flees. In a cab, a blonde woman pays a man named Dr. Knox for a mysterious service. The dispatcher again talks about how no one ever replies to his broadcasts. At the museum, Nunvu arrives just in time. She sees Veronique and realizes the truth. They are twins, separated at birth. At the center, Clea tells Martin to stay put for the rest of the day. Strepling, the director of the board and care facility, is watching closely. Jake continues forming the cat's cradle, repeating the same pattern. Martin struggles to understand the meaning. At the same time, Dr. Knox speaks to another man who is unsure about their plan. The cab driver overhears and becomes suspicious. He turns off his radio to listen better. On the space station, Allegra loses contact with Gio. Control won't let her try Hippolyta's new system, but she makes the attempt anyway. At the airport, Martin bumps into someone and a coin falls to the floor. It belongs to Hippolyta, her lucky charm. Clea threatens Strepling. She knows something is hidden in room 6. Strepling remains quiet, but clearly worried. Martin finds Dr. Knox, and also the man who helped him forge adoption papers. He hands both over to the police. At the same time, the cab driver hears Allegra's Mayday on his ham radio. He repairs the radio using the part Martin returned earlier. Contact is restored. Gio is saved just in time. Veronique and Nunvu hug at the airport. Their parents join in. Veronique's husband stands by them. Martin and Jake share a quiet moment. Jake offers the yarn to his father, inviting him to continue the pattern. Clea arrives with bad news. She's been removed from Jake's case. A room is filled with instruments, and a woman is playing the violin near the window. Her music is flowing across scenes, connecting stars in the sky and diamonds on black cloth. A man with glasses inspects those diamonds. Outside, a black boy runs past a Portuguese street musician who sings gently. A tall woman walks by and smiles. Inside a cafe, she begins setting tables. Jake taps the numbers 55124 into his tablet. Each digit creates a tone. Martin tries to get Jake to use the number-to-word app, but Jake sticks with the music page. At the center, Strepling tries to block Martin from taking Jake to the park, but he stands firm. Martin and Clea walk through the city, speaking about Strepling's strange behavior. Suddenly, the violinist bumps into Jake, spilling coffee on him. Jake becomes upset, so Martin gives Clea the key to room 1188 and leaves to calm Jake. At her shop, the violinist finds the boy who had run earlier. He's searching her drawers and holding a gun. She lets him leave unharmed. Outside, he drops the gun into the alley. At the cafe, the singer Philippe talks to Yara, the cafe owner. He invites her to spend the evening with him. She agrees to meet him at 10. Jake later stops in front of a music store and watches a man exit. At home, Martin again tries the number to word app with Jake. Instead, Jake pulls out the same gun dropped earlier. Martin is shocked, but he notices the number 55124 etched into the gun's side. Now he understands Jake's message. Felipe sees Yara argue with a man trying to buy the cafe. She refuses because the cafe is all she has left of her family. Felipe tries to cheer her up, but she doesn't show up that night. Clea arrives at room 1188, finding it filled with papers, drawings, and chalkboards. A man named Avram walks in with diamonds. Clea speaks to him about Dr. Teller. He only says they were roommates and seems uninterested in Teller's death. Jake takes Martin back to the alley, where the black boy is searching for the gun. Martin promises not to call police and learns that the boy has a brother who can't speak. Jake brings them to the brother, Andre, and plays the 55,124 tones. He puts the tablet under Andre's hand. Andre responds with a small movement. Back in room 1188, Clea goes through papers while Avram focuses on polishing diamonds. Martin calls to ask her to look into the boy's background. She finds a connection to a girl named Amelia. This name gets Avram's attention. He finally opens up and gives Clea a box with Amelia's files and a photo. Amelia was once a subject in Teller's experiments, which eventually broke her. Teller lost everything after that. Elliot, the older brother, gets a message that upsets him. He tells Martin to leave. Martin wants to help, but respects Jake's signal to back off for now. Felipe visits a shop and asks to sell his guitar. It's a sacrifice he's willing to make for Yara. The shop owner agrees and says the buyer is in New York. If Felipe can't go to New York, at least his guitar can. Clea learns that Elliot has a probation officer. Martin visits the officer, pretending to be a coach. He hints that someone is harassing Elliot. He notices another man in the office, someone he saw earlier. That man reveals the officer forced Elliot to steal from the violinist's store. Later, Elliot steals her bag again, but police arrive quickly and stop him. Jake watches Avram drop a diamond. Jake helps him find it and even touches his hand. This is huge. Jake doesn't touch anyone. Felipe returns to Yara and gives her the money from selling the guitar. She becomes angry, but then listens as he shares his feelings. She hears Martin's message about the boys and realizes they are her nephews. She kisses Felipe. They decide to go to New York together. Elliot hands over a stolen bank bag to his probation officer. He also hands over the gun. Moments later, the man is arrested. Back in the music store, Felipe gets his guitar back. Avram continues polishing his diamonds. Yara, Felipe, Elliot, and Andre eat dinner together like a family. Jake continues playing with the yarn. Strepling questions Martin about the missing tablet. He tells her Jake gave it away. She worries that Jake won't learn to talk. Martin finally accepts that maybe Jake doesn't need to talk to be understood. Jake inspects multicolored 12-sided blocks, each marked with a number. At the center, Clea enters a room filled with papers and old files. A young man delivers fruit at a market and shares a warm moment with a young woman dressed in Muslim clothes. Nearby, a photographer captures random moments around the port. Martin follows Jake to a coin-operated viewer. Jake insists on a specific direction, revealing containers marked Mobius Global Enterprises. The number 2545 connects both the viewer and the containers. Martin's sister-in-law, Abigail, arrives. Martin tries to reason with her. He wants Jake to have access to someone he trusts, like Clea, and pleads with Abigail to help. She agrees to make a call. At Teller's study, Jake manipulates boxes into a stack before toppling them over, revealing a $10,000 check from Mobius. Avram explains Mobius had funded Teller's research. Jake updates the Amelia sequence with new numbers. Martin realizes Jake is pointing toward the shipping containers and decides to investigate. Martin sneaks into the Mobius yard, enters an empty office, and later finds truck number 2545. Inside the truck, he finds a phone and keys. Workers arrive and mistake him for Mike, the driver. One of them even shows a gun. They plan to rob a man already involved in shady deals. The target is shipment 2545. Meanwhile, the young fruit vendor and the Muslim woman are falling in love despite deep cultural divides. A Jewish elder, recently seen with Avram, refuses to sell a promise ring. He believes her brother may sell it for the wrong reasons. At the center, Strepling pushes Jake into solving block patterns under surveillance. Clea arrives, sees the stress on Jake's face, and notices Jake quietly pointing out numbers, 25 and 45. She also sees someone is secretly observing him through Strepling's laptop. The young man gets a call from Avram, offering help. The woman shares that her brother has been taken into custody and asks her boyfriend to visit the prison in her place. He agrees, though they argue briefly over suspicion and trust. Inside the prison, her brother gives a coded message. 9808 has changed to 2545. Avram explains the meaning behind these numbers. The new sequence symbolizes hope and strength instead of destruction. Clea hears the same numbers and asks about the blocks. Avram says they are the 5 platonic solids, ancient shapes representing the elements. Back at the docks, Martin plays along with the crew. He gets info from Nelson, then calls Clea to confirm Jake's number. Joey, one of the workers, notices Martin's silence and begins to trust him. Joey's wife visits, needing medicine money. Martin witnesses Joey's personal struggle. At the prison, the young man learns that 2545 is not just a number. It's a rescue message. A container must be intercepted tonight. Meanwhile, the test at the center continues. Jake resists playing until Clea tells him he's being watched. Jake uses his tablet to override the boundary of the test. Kids scatter. Clea uses the distraction to steal the laptop. Martin and Joey head for the shipment. The police swarm the area and open the wrong container, 9808. It contains nothing but oranges. Joey disappears. Later, Clea shows Abigail one of the geometric blocks Strepling used on Jake. She sees a matching crystal in Abigail's office and accuses her of knowing more. Abigail stays quiet. Joey's wife finds a photo of Martin and Jake in her developed film. She sees something meaningful in it. At the docks, Martin stops Joey from committing a crime. He convinces Nelson to give Joey his job back in exchange for a helpful contact in the media. Nelson gives in. The young couple finally delivers the message. It reaches Martin through Mike's phone. They find the correct container. It contains human trafficking victims from Israel. Joey is praised by the media for saving lives. His wife stands beside him proudly. At home, Martin frames the photo of him and Jake. Joey helps his wife peel an orange, even as her hands shake. Clea drops the final truth. Astercorp, the company Abigail works for, is still testing the same theories Teller once studied. First they tested Amelia, now they're after Jake. Martin confronts Abigail about Astercorp and Jake's connection to Mobius. Abigail admits the company has been watching Jake since he took a test. She says Martin was away during that time, and Sarah told her about the strange man from Mobius. As they argue about custody, Jake picks up a toy box labeled Open, revealing a glittery crystal dodecahedron. He calmly walks out to the balcony and drops the heavy globe onto a police car below, numbered 2217, the same number Jake had written earlier. At the station, the officers oddly return the crystal to Jake. Instead of leaving with Martin, Jake enters a restricted hallway. He spills soda in front of a door, creating a trap. A worker with case files slips, and Jake and Martin find what they need, case file 2217, which mentions Amelia Roberts. On the beach, the blonde finds more tsunami debris. A man collecting items tries to stop her. She claims the beach by building a private structure. Nearby in Japan, 2 boys try to break a soccer dribbling record. Their father disapproves, believing the attempt is foolish. The family struggles after losing work due to the tsunami. Martin shows the file to Clea. Amelia's case says she died in an accident, but Martin doesn't believe it. He visits the coroner, who says the body was badly damaged and identified by dental records, though some key parts of the report are missing. Martin contacts Amelia's parents. Her father is upset and wants no involvement. Her mother is the one who reopened the case. Clea continues to observe suspicious behavior at the center. Strepling warns her to stay in line. Meanwhile, Martin visits Avram and learns the group of old men believe Jake is becoming self-aware. This worries them. Jake has chosen Martin as his link to the world, which breaks all expectations. They fear that Jake meeting Amelia could cause problems. Avram disagrees and offers to help. eBay, the man collecting debris, reveals his story. During the tsunami, he held onto a woman for hours before she slipped away. Now he hopes someone will recognize the items he finds. The blonde softens and offers to help him with his mission. Martin and Avram watch a video of Amelia. She behaves like Jake, focused on numbers, quiet. She then speaks about weather maps and recovering from appendicitis. Martin remembers that the autopsy said her appendix was still in place. That proves the body wasn't Amelia. He becomes hopeful. Jake uses a toy train to reenact something. On Clea's phone, Martin's call goes unanswered. The Pop twins cheer on Seiji, the boy trying to break the world record. Martin is attacked in an alley, and the file and DVD about Amelia are stolen. Seiji's father learns from his former boss that his job is gone for good. Seiji loses control of the soccer ball after seeing his father walk indoors with shoes on. The act of disrespect causes Seiji to lose his focus and smash a samurai display. The countdown on the blonde's phone reaches 0. She waits for someone she's longed to see. She is Amelia's mother, Lucy. She believes the ocean currents brought her here. Wade, the man helping her, believes Amelia could be somewhere else. He promises to help find a new path. Martin wakes up on train tracks with a train coming. He breaks into a nearby door to save himself. He tells Abigail about it, but finally sees through her manipulation. He refuses to give Jake up. Seiji's parents see their story on the news. The sword that washed ashore belongs to them. It was found by Wade. The father thanks his son for leading to this reunion. Wade is stunned when he sees the news. It was the same woman he tried to save during the tsunami. The items did lead them back together. Lucy realizes she was meant to be on that beach. She receives a call from Amelia's father. Wade believes the currents shifted and promises to find the right location. He gives her hope again. Back at the center, Martin storms in. The police are there. Strepling has taken custody of Jake through court order. Clea has sided with them, and Martin is left powerless. Martin looks through old photos of him and Jake. A phone call interrupts him. Someone warns that something important will happen today. He panics, drops the photos, and quickly packs clothes into a bag. At the same time, Lucy loads her luggage and studies a map. In different corners of the world, lives begin to shift. Randall Mead, the firefighter from the pilot, paints the inside of a freshly rebuilt church with a young boy. In a tropical country, a man searches for Jamar Bako. Jake, quietly focused, writes the number 4370 in his book. Clea prepares his overnight bag. Jake puts on a hoodie, hides a blue phone in his pocket, and lowers the hoodie over his head, a sign something is different today. Martin pulls out a coffee can filled with cash. Abigail arrives, worried. She begs Martin to let the lawyers handle things, but he has made other plans. He goes to Arnie's shop to buy a gun, but without bullets. Arnie warns him, but Martin insists. The young musician in the tropics watches a video of Jamar. Lucy, nearby, calls her husband to ask for a contact number. Clea tries to say goodbye to Jake, but he's distracted. He snaps a picture of the crystal dodecahedron with the blue phone, then pours popcorn into his backpack. At the center, Martin arrives pretending he belongs there. Strepling spots him. Randall's young friend gives him a beautiful 1917 sextant. It was ordered online and shows his interest in navigation. The boy wants Randall to come for dinner, and his mother reluctantly agrees, hinting at feelings between them. Strepling takes Martin to the rec room to say goodbye to Jake, but Jake is missing. Another boy wears his hoodie. Clea hides a knowing smile. Outside, she whispers that she put Jake in a cab and called the doorman to make sure he gets home safely. Martin plays the role of angry parent until they kick him out. At home, Martin finds the blue phone and realizes Jake left a message. The photos on the phone show the crystal dodecahedron and the number 4370 formed from popcorn. Jake walks the city streets and encounters the invisible prince, Walt, who also sees numbers. Walt distracts police so Jake can slip into the subway. Lucy's car breaks down near a gas station. She meets Zach, the young man who posted the African music video. His video has received 318 views, 318, a number connected to her daughter. She offers him a ride. Randall and Colin examine church blueprints with lottery numbers. Randall wonders if Colin's sextant can point them somewhere meaningful. The numbers form a spiral, hinting at purpose. Martin reaches the cemetery and finds Jake at Sarah's grave. The number 4370 was her birth date. He understands now. Abigail calls, and as always, Martin shares too much. Clea confronts Strepling at the center. She brings up Amelia, Teller's research, and Astrocorp. Strepling begins to panic. Martin takes Jake to Avram, the only person he can trust now. But the lab is empty. The research is gone, though they left Avram's diamonds. Jake writes the Amelia sequence on the chalkboard again. Randall tells Gwen he must leave. She tries to convince him to stay, but he says he has a debt to pay. Avram arranges 2 bus tickets for Martin and Jake, but Jake refuses to board. He keeps looking at the screen. Martin understands 4370 is a route to Los Angeles. Zach arrives at a door marked 3287. The person he hopes to meet is now living as Thomasina, no longer Thomas. She had to leave her country for a new life. At the bus station, men spot Martin and Jake. A chase begins. Martin pulls the gun to defend them, but he doesn't shoot. Instead, he uses a brick to escape. Jake runs into traffic. A car nearly hits him, but Randall is driving. Jake jumps in, followed by Martin. Randall remembers him and begins to cry. Randall tells the story of Sarah's final moments. He carried her down the tower on September 11th. She had to rest. She said her life was complete. Randall honors her final words by helping Martin and Jake now. He gives them the car. His debt is paid. Martin calls Clea to say they are safe, but tells her nothing more. Jake and Martin run down a pier. A woman follows. A map of ocean currents blows toward Jake. Lucy appears. At last, Jake and Martin meet her. Their paths finally cross with Amelia's. For the first time, Jake reaches for Martin's hand. The cycle begins to change, but the pattern continues. And that is it for today. If you enjoyed this recap, don't forget to subscribe, hit like, and drop your thoughts in the comments. Until next time.